Millions travel to Cumbria's Eskdale Valley every year to find a specific type of English wilderness, one that feels ancient, silent, and entirely untouched. But the deeper you look into the valley's geography, the more that silence starts to feel like a very recent development. Stripping away the modern canopy reveals the valley floor's true nature, the footprints of a sprawling industrial hub. For centuries, these ridges supported the movement of iron ore and charcoal, making this one of the most productive landscapes in the north. It suggests that Eskdale is less of a natural preserve and more of a massive, decommissioned machine that the forest has simply overgrown. Take Stanley Gill. It is one of the most famous waterfall ravines in the Lake District, known for a humid, jungle-like canopy that feels prehistoric. That canopy was actually a Victorian landscaping project. In 1857, estate owners began blanketing the area with imported rhododendrons to serve as a nursery for a nearby castle garden. Those plants thrived, but they also choked out the native mosses and acidified the soil. Their root systems drove deep into the granite, prying the bedrock apart and creating the hazardous, unstable rockfalls park rangers still fight to manage today. The wild tourists see here is an artificial construction, a hazardous human artifact that requires constant modern engineering to remain accessible. Even the forests were managed like agricultural crops. Through a process called coppicing, trees were systematically pruned down to their stumps to force rapid, dense regrowth for fuel. This fuel was produced on a massive scale. Workers harvested the timber and stacked it into these immense kilns to burn wood into charcoal. That charcoal fed bloomeries, primitive iron smelters hidden along the riverbanks, where local ore was processed for export. Higher up on the exposed moors, you can see tiny stone huts known as peat scales. These were designed to store a second, highly combustible fuel source harvested directly from the ground. Harvesting this fuel was grueling. Workers cut dense blocks of peat by hand and stacked them to dry before sledding them down the 1-in-3 hillsides. The very shape of the hillsides and the density of the woods were dictated by the valley's insatiable need to power its furnaces. Moving heavy iron ore and charcoal across these vertical drops required a logistics network that predates modern roads. The engine of that network was the fell pony. These native animals were bred for the stamina to carry heavy loads and the specialized balance needed to survive the slick rock and steep inclines. The foundations of this system were Roman. They built high-altitude routes like Hard Knot Pass to move troops and keep frontier forts stocked with luxuries. Centuries later, the monks of Furness Abbey inherited those military roads, transforming them into a commercial network, moving massive amounts of wool and iron. Eventually, those paths served the black market. Smugglers used the night to lead pony trains carrying illicit whiskey and tobacco to avoid the law. The infrastructure was engineered for pony trains. These bridges feature exceptionally low sidewalls, so the wide cargo panniers could clear the stone without snagging. The quaint stone trails and bridges that hikers use today are the surviving bones of a ruthless, high-stakes commercial logistical network. This panoramic view contains every layer of the valley's history: the Victorian woods, the industrial fuel stores, and the old trade routes. The physical evidence of that labor is permanently etched into the earth, in the form of stone-paved roads that have survived for 2,000 years. The Lake District is not a monument to pristine isolation. It is a museum of human endurance and industry. On your next hike, look past the green scenery. The ghosts of an ancient infrastructure are sitting right beneath your boots.